Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine the doctor looks at you and says you have exactly 5 minutes left. After that, they will be gone. What would you say? Would you apologize? Would you confess a secret? Or would you just say, "I love you," over and over again? In today's story, The Final Goodbye, we follow a powerful journey through the hardest 5 minutes of a person's life. We're going to explore a real-life dilemma that forces us to think about what truly matters when time is running out. As we listen to this deeply emotional story, we're also going to level up your English. Together, we'll learn powerful vocabulary for expressing grief, gratitude, and forgiveness. Real-life English for real human moments. Grab a notebook, settle in, and let's begin Chapter 1.
The sterile smell of rubbing alcohol and bleach filled the corridor, but inside room 314, the air felt completely frozen. The heavy silence was broken only by the rhythmic, mechanical beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor. It was a sound that measured the fragile boundary between life and death. Maya stood just inside the doorway, her boots glued to the cold linoleum floor. Her chest felt incredibly tight, as if she were underwater. On the bed lay Liam. His face was pale, almost translucent under the harsh fluorescent lights, and his eyes were closed. He looked peaceful, as if he were merely taking a nap, but the complex web of plastic tubes and whispering machines told a completely different, heartbreaking story. Just moments ago, Dr. Evans had stopped Maya in the hallway. The doctor's voice had been quiet, filled with professional sympathy. "The brain activity is fading rapidly, Maya. When we disconnect the life support, you will have exactly 5 minutes before he passes away. 5 minutes to say your goodbyes. He might not respond, but they say hearing is the very last sense to go." 5 minutes. 300 seconds. How could a lifetime of shared memories, inside jokes, and unresolved arguments be compressed into such a tiny fragment of time? The concept of time had completely changed. Yesterday, 5 minutes was just a boring wait for a bus or a quick coffee break. Right now, it was a priceless, vanishing luxury. Maya took a deep, shaky breath and forced her feet to move forward. She approached the bedside, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Liam," she whispered, her voice cracking in the quiet room. The first minute had already begun.
Maya crossed the room, her footsteps making almost no sound on the floor. She reached out and slowly took Liam's hand in hers. It felt alarmingly cold and heavy, a stark contrast to the warm, energetic hands that used to gesture wildly whenever he talked about his passions. She squeezed his fingers gently, hoping against hope for a responsive squeeze that did not come. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The second minute was already slipping away. A thick, suffocating knot formed in her throat, choking back the flood of words trying to escape. When you have a lifetime to speak, words come easily. But when you have less than 4 minutes, your mind becomes a chaotic storm. Should she start by telling him how much she would miss him, or should she focus on the beautiful moments they shared? Every potential sentence felt too small, too weak to carry the enormous weight of her love and grief. "I don't even know where to begin, Liam," she whispered, a tear escaping and tracking a wet path down her cheek. She felt a sudden sharp wave of regret for all the times she had canceled plans or assumed they would have another day to talk. Human beings always live as if they have an infinite amount of time, postponing deep conversations for a tomorrow that isn't guaranteed. She looked at his still face, desperately wishing he could open his eyes for just one single second to give her a sign. But the monitor kept up its uncaring rhythm, counting down the precious seconds of his existence. Maya closed her eyes, cleared her throat, and forced her mind to focus through the heavy panic. She had to speak now before the heavy silence won.
Maya took a deep breath, leaning closer to Liam so her voice wouldn't carry beyond the curtain. The heart monitor marked the arrival of the 3rd minute, its rhythmic pace a constant reminder of the shrinking window. "Liam, if you can still hear me, there is something I need to tell you," she whispered, her hands trembling. "It's about that rainy evening 3 years ago, right before you moved across the country for your new job." She remembered the exact cafe, the smell of damp coats, and the heavy silence that had stretched between them that night. "You asked me if I wanted you to stay, and I laughed it off, telling you to chase your big career dreams." A quiet sob escaped her lips as she confessed the truth that had locked her heart away for years. "That was the biggest lie I have ever told in my entire life, and it has haunted me every single day since. I wanted to scream at you to stay, to tell you that my world was brighter with you in it, but I was too terrified of failing." She looked at his calm, unmoving expression, wondering if the truth was finally reaching his fading consciousness. Holding a secret like that felt like carrying a heavy stone, and keeping it hidden had only built a wall between them. Now, facing the ultimate end, the fear of rejection or vulnerability seemed incredibly small and foolish. "I hid my feelings because I wanted to protect myself from getting hurt, but all I did was miss out on our chance." The confession hung in the clinical air of the hospital room, stripping away years of pretense and hidden regret. Even though his eyes remained closed, a strange sense of relief washed over her as the burden finally lifted. She had finally spoken the truth, but the ticking clock was already pushing her into the next minute. The digital clock on the wall shifted, signaling that they were now entering the 4th minute. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her trembling hand, realizing that love wasn't the only thing left unspoken. Relationships are messy, and the memories of their old disagreements suddenly flooded her mind. "We wasted so much precious time being angry at each other, Liam," she said, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. She thought back to their last major argument, a foolish misunderstanding that had caused a bitter 6-month silence between them. Neither of them had wanted to be the first to apologize, letting their stubborn pride build a wall of resentment. Looking at him now, attached to machines that were keeping him alive, that stubbornness felt incredibly trivial and meaningless. "I am so incredibly sorry for holding on to that anger and for letting my pride get in the way of our friendship," she confessed. "I forgive you completely for your part in it, and I am begging you to forgive me for mine." True forgiveness is a difficult choice, a conscious decision to let go of old hurts so the heart can finally heal. In the quiet sanctuary of the hospital room, the old grudges simply evaporated, leaving behind only raw, unfiltered affection. She squeezed his cold hand again, wishing she had possessed this clarity months ago when they were both healthy and stubborn. It shouldn't take a tragedy to remind human beings that holding a grudge is a massive waste of a short life. The heavy weight of anger was completely gone now, replaced by a pure, aching desire for him to find absolute peace. As the monitor beeped steadily, Maya felt a profound shift within herself, knowing that resentment had no place in their final moments. But time was a cruel master, and the fourth minute was already dissolving into history. Maya swallowed hard, determined not to let these precious remaining moments be entirely consumed by sadness and heavy tears. The heart monitor beat steadily, marking the arrival of the fifth minute, pushing them closer to the halfway point of their brief time. A sudden, bright memory flashed through her mind, breaking through the suffocating gloom of the sterile hospital room. "Do you remember that ridiculous road trip to the coast 2 summers ago, Liam?" she asked, a genuine smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "The old radiator in your ancient car completely exploded in the middle of absolutely nowhere, pouring thick white smoke into the sky." She let out a soft, breathless laugh, the sound echoing strangely against the quiet medical walls. "We were stranded for 6 miserable hours in the pouring rain, eating stale potato chips and singing terrible karaoke songs at the top of our lungs." In that chaotic, ruined moment, they hadn't been angry or stressed. They had simply laughed until their stomachs ached, turning a minor disaster into an unforgettable adventure. Recalling that shared joy felt like a warm blanket thrown over her shivering shoulders, momentarily pushing the tragic reality away. "You always had this incredible gift of finding humor in the worst possible situations," she murmured, gazing fondly at his peaceful face. It was those small, spontaneous moments of laughter that truly defined their deep connection, far more than any serious conversation ever could. Joy and grief can exist in the exact same space, and celebrating a beautiful life is just as important as mourning its approaching end. Maya realized that she didn't just want to remember Liam as a patient in a bed. She wanted to remember him vibrant, alive, and laughing. The warmth of that memory provided a fleeting escape, a brief sanctuary from the ticking clock that governed the room. She squeezed his hand, drawing strength from the ghost of that summer day as the brief laughter faded back into silence. The halfway mark was gone, and the countdown was relentlessly moving forward into the final minutes. The steady beep of the monitor signaled that they were now entering the 6th minute of their agonizingly short encounter. Maya felt a cold wave of sorrow wash over her as the brief warmth of their happy memories slowly faded away. She looked at Liam's still face, suddenly overwhelmed by the crushing weight of a future that would now never happen. "We had so many grand plans for this upcoming autumn, Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling with intense emotion. "We promised each other we would finally save up enough money to buy those plane tickets to Japan to see the cherry blossoms." They had spent countless late nights drinking cheap coffee, mapping out routes, and circling tiny hidden restaurants on ancient paper maps. Now those exciting travel guides would remain completely untouched on her bookshelf, serving as painful reminders of a broken dream. Grief is not just about mourning the past, it is also about mourning the loss of the future you had so carefully constructed. Every unfulfilled promise and every canceled plan felt like a sharp needle piercing her heart, emphasizing the cruelty of stolen time. "I am so sorry that we delayed our happiness, thinking that we would always have a vague tomorrow to fulfill our dreams," she wept. Human beings frequently make the mistake of assuming that the future is a guaranteed certainty rather than a fragile, unpredictable gift. She gently touched his shoulder, realizing that she would have to carry the weight of these unfinished stories all by herself. The realization that he would never experience the world beside her was a devastating truth that she was forced to accept. But even in her deep sorrow, she knew she couldn't allow her final moments with him to be entirely defined by bitter regret. She had to honor the beautiful dreams they had shared, even if those dreams were destined to remain forever incomplete. As the relentless monitor counted down the seconds, Maya prepared her heart to transition from what could have been to what truly was.
The digital clock on the hospital wall advanced ruthlessly, marking the beginning of the 7th minute. Maya wiped her damp cheeks, realizing that the grand plans and dramatic confessions weren't the things filling her mind anymore. Instead, a gentle wave of gratitude washed over her as she looked down at Liam's peaceful, unmoving face. "I spent so much time wishing for extraordinary milestones, Liam, but right now I just want to thank you for the ordinary days," she murmured. She remembered the quiet Sunday mornings when he would make terrible burnt toast and laugh off his complete lack of cooking skills. She remembered the endless, exhausting traffic jams where they would sit in comfortable silence, simply content to be in each other's presence. Those small, seemingly insignificant moments were the true fabric of their relationship, woven tightly over years of quiet loyalty. Gratitude has a beautiful way of shifting your perspective, turning a cold, terrifying hospital room into a sanctuary of appreciation. "Thank you for answering my frantic phone calls at 2 in the morning whenever my anxiety got the absolute best of me," she whispered. "Thank you for listening to my boring work complaints and for always celebrating my smallest victories as if they were historic achievements." Human beings often overlook the immense value of daily kindness, searching instead for grand, loud gestures that matter far less in the end. It was his steady, reliable presence during the boring, routine parts of life that had truly made her feel safe and profoundly loved. Saying thank you felt incredibly necessary, a final gift of recognition for the beautiful soul he had always been to her. The heart monitor continued its steady metallic countdown, but the suffocating panic in her chest had finally begun to ease. Maya kissed the back of his cold hand, letting her tears flow freely without the sharp, biting edge of regret. She had expressed her deepest gratitude, but the relentless passage of time was already urging her toward the final minute.
The heart monitor beeped with a steady, unyielding rhythm, signaling that they were now entering the 8th minute. Maya leaned in closer, brushing a stray lock of hair away from Liam's forehead as she prepared herself for the final countdown. "Liam, I know your body is tired, but I need you to carry a message with you wherever your soul goes next," she whispered urgently. "I am going to make a solemn promise to you right here, and I will spend the rest of my life ensuring that I keep it." She knew that a person's physical existence might end, but the profound legacy they leave behind in the hearts of others can live on forever. "I will not let your memory fade into darkness, and I will never let the world forget the incredible kindness you showed to everyone around you." She promised to tell his favorite hilarious stories, to finish the community projects he cared about, and to live life with his signature enthusiasm. Giving a departing loved one a mission or a legacy is a powerful way to bridge the painful gap between life and death. It gives the living a meaningful purpose to pursue through their grief, and it gives the dying a beautiful sense of completion. Every single time I see a beautiful sunset or accomplish a difficult goal, I will know that a piece of you is right there beside me," she said. The sheer weight of her words seemed to charge the clinical air with a profound, almost spiritual sense of enduring devotion. She was no longer just a helpless bystander watching a tragedy unfold. She was the proud guardian of his remarkable memory. "You can step into the light without any fear, Liam, because your spirit is safely anchored right here inside my heart," she promised. The monitor continued its cold, mechanical counting, but a deep sense of strength was beginning to replace her overwhelming sorrow. Maya gripped his hand with renewed determination, preparing her heart for the absolute ultimate test of love that lay just ahead. The 8th minute was dissolving rapidly, and the final 60 seconds were waiting right around the corner.
The digital clock advanced to the final marker, signaling the arrival of the 9th minute, the absolute end of their 5 allotted minutes. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor suddenly began to change its tone, slowing in a terrifying, erratic pattern. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat, knowing that the medical staff would be entering the quiet room in just 60 seconds. "This is it, Liam," she whispered, her voice cracking under the unbearable weight of the final, looming goodbye. She leaned down completely, pressing her forehead gently against his cold cheek, letting her tears mix with the sterile stillness of the bed. "You have fought so incredibly hard, but it is finally okay to stop fighting now. You can let go." Giving a loved one permission to depart is perhaps the ultimate, most selfless act of love a human being can perform. It requires you to completely conquer your own selfish desire to hold on, prioritizing their peace above your own deep emotional survival. "Don't worry about me, and don't worry about leaving this world behind, because you have loved me beautifully, and that is more than enough," she sobbed. She squeezed his heavy fingers one final time, consciously memorizing the exact texture, shape, and feel of his hand. The monitor let out a long, continuous, high-pitched tone that pierced the heavy silence like a sharp knife. "I love you, Liam. I will love you through every single sunrise and every single quiet night until I see you again," she whispered breathlessly. With a slow, trembling motion, she uncurled her fingers and gently released his hand, letting it rest peacefully on the white sheet. The physical connection was broken, and a suffocating wave of absolute finality settled over the entire room. The door handle slowly clicked, and the bright white corridor light began to flood into the dark sanctuary. The 5 minutes were officially over, and the final boundary had been crossed. The long, continuous tone of the monitor was suddenly silenced as the nurse stepped into the room and gently flipped a switch. The sudden absence of the mechanical ticking left a profound, heavy void in the room, a silence far deeper than before. Dr. Evans walked in quietly, checked his watch with a practiced, solemn movements, and recorded the official time of death. Maya stood completely frozen beside the bed, staring down at Liam's face, which now looked entirely at peace, free from all suffering. The 5 minutes that had felt like an eternity and a single heartbeat all at once were officially, completely over. She felt a gentle, sympathetic hand touch her shoulder as the nurse whispered that it was time to step outside. Maya nodded slowly, took one final long look at the man who had shaped her world, and turned toward the exit.
Her boots felt incredibly heavy, like lead, as she crossed the threshold of room 314 and stepped out into the bustling corridor. The hospital hallway was a stark contrast to the quiet sanctuary she had just left behind, filled with noise and movement. Nurses were rushing past with charts, a distant telephone was ringing persistently, and doctors were conversing in hushed tones. It felt completely surreal and jarring that the outside world was continuing to move forward so normally when her entire universe had just shattered. She walked toward the heavy glass doors of the hospital lobby, pushing them open to reveal the crisp morning air outside. The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant shades of soft orange, pink, and gold. A cold breeze brushed against her damp face, and she took her very first deep breath of this new, unfamiliar reality. She was stepping into a world without Liam, an intimidating future filled with grief, adjustment, and quiet spaces. Yet, as she looked up at the beautiful sunrise, she didn't feel the crushing weight of despair she had initially expected. Instead, a strange, quiet sense of resilience began to anchor itself deep within her aching chest. She hadn't wasted a single second of her final 5 minutes. She had confessed, forgiven, laughed, and loved completely. She had said everything that ever needed to be said, and that beautiful truth would protect her heart moving forward. With a steady, determined step, Maya walked forward into the light of the morning, ready to begin the long journey of healing.
Maya stepped into a new morning, carrying Liam's memory in her heart. She proved that even when time is running out, love, forgiveness, and gratitude are the most powerful choices we can make. It makes you think, if you had only 5 minutes, who would you call? What would you say? This story was filled with deep, real-life English vocabulary. Words like resilience, the strength to keep moving forward, and vulnerability, the courage to show your true feelings. Which of today's vocabulary words touched your heart the most? Write it down in the comments below to practice your English right now. And you can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. If this story moved you and helped your English journey today, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't postpone your learning. Click right here to join me for the next story, and let's keep learning together. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story. Goodbye.